I just want to show you some of the side-by-side problems whenever we used it to generate entire pieces of content, which hopefully none of you are doing that without an editor in the process, because that's where we found, I would say, like the most amount of dangers, if you're going to say like this is a dangerous tool. And it's funny because the tool itself on their homepage, they're saying that they're really working on the safety aspect, which is kind of crazy. We studied that in today's blog. I'll go up to it here. Let me see if I can find it. They have to train the model to be cautious, to answer questions correctly. There's no source of truth. And this is like, to me, this is the reason why you really want to be careful with it, because it can spit out content in 30 seconds. But if you're using a tool that has no source of truth, can you even use that content? And I think it has uses, right? Short form, replacement for, okay, what should I write on the calendar next? Topic ideation. So it can spark ideas in that way, but it definitely cannot replace the writer. And here's why. So last week, one of my writers finished a almost 2,000 word, 1,600 word guide. And this is based on our research of, okay, how is this piece going to outdo what's out there for this topic? And the keyword is around pillar content strategy. I think the actual keyword is this 6-word string, how to create a pillar content strategy. So, we do our research. Usually takes like 2 weeks to write one of these pieces, which is completely fine with me because we're always ahead. So if we're always ahead, then there's no rush. And I always find that our writers at Content Hacker produce far better content when there's no rush. And if you're ahead at all times, then you don't need a rush. So whenever I asked ChatGPT to write the same blog, write an in-depth blog on how to create a pillar content strategy, that's what I fed it. This is what it gave us. So this is a little under 500 words, almost 1/3 the size of a full article. And the reason why, I don't even have my writer use ChatGPT to start long form is because at Content Hacker, we really have some original ideas. So with pillar content, we've tested pillar and cluster content, and we're actually creating our own graphic on this piece. And here's how that graphic turned out. So let's go back to this. So we had a graphic develop based on what the writer found when researching this piece. And that's something that, it's going to be hard to do, even with AI tools that are basically creating images now. Like, I don't think you could do this. I think it'd be very difficult with an AI tool. So whenever we are writing this piece, we're thinking of how can we present it in a unique visual way. So the pillar page content is something that would be unique to us. So here's the image. And we recently started using this analogy of a cake whenever we're talking about content, ideation, creation, and publishing. It's like a 3-layer cake, like you stack your layers. So that's something, we came up with. Again, it was based on the research when writing this piece of content. So the research can prompt really unique ideas for visuals too. And that's why, like, in the long form process, like, AI just doesn't fit. It still doesn't fit, even with GPT 3.5, because we want to create really original, unique stuff. And I can tell you, when a blog this unique goes out on our site, when it hits our newsletter, sometimes we will get somebody to reply to it that day, but they're not replying to the email. They're clicking on that last CTA all the way at the end of the blog. They're clicking on that last CTA and then contacting us. Whenever you have content really unique that's written well, and there's a big difference between writing well for your English professor and writing well for the online reader. So when you write well for the online reader, this is what it looks like. This is strategically done. So we're doing something that no professor would ever grade an A. In fact, we'd probably get an F for this, and the AI would get an A. But here's why you cannot write entire paragraphs. It's not readable. It really isn't readable. And there was some research done by the Smart Blogger team, and they were one of the leaders in this style back in the day, over 10 years ago. So John Morrow, who started that blog, was researching writing. He was an amazing writer. Like, literally the whole business is based on good writing. So what he found was the click through the scroll was much better with much shorter paragraphs. Like so short, it's like we're talking 6 words and, a ... instead of an actual sentence. So this really goes against any kind of English class, but it works. It really works for an online reader. It hooks them. So if you're creating hooks, it's going to look nothing like ChatGPT. And the rest of this, the other issue is fluff. There's just so much said here that could be said so much more simply. Like this sentence. I'm not even going to read it. It's so boring. Like we could summarize this in 1 sentence. And really, it's not saying a lot. It's much about nothing. So it's been repeated up here in a different way. So you don't want to do that in your content, right? You want to create uniqueness, a flow that captures people, and you want to create hooks. So we're very strategic at Content Hacker with how we've structured content, where we ask questions. If you ask questions, you can get people to shake their head yes, or to say, I'm interested. Then you keep that scroll going because they're interested. They want to learn more. They're either saying yes or maybe to a question you've asked. So entire structure, it's just not going to be there in this piece. And then besides the fluff and the structure, we also have something I saw that really stuck out. I didn't like it all, which was how it actually described the topic on pillar content. So, pillar content is not necessarily this conglomeration of different formats. So AI is saying that pillar content can be a blog post, an ebook, this, that, white paper, long form content. No, we would disagree. And, there's opinions you can have. They're wrong, right? But we really think our opinion's right because we've tested. And pillar content is most often associated with the blog, the website. So pillar pages, cluster pages, and related content to that. So whenever we're describing it, we're going to be very specific about that. We're not going to just conglomerate formats, and we're going to create a really cool visual that explains this, right? So we've color coded the pillar page in pink, and then the cluster pages are this cream color. So this is a really good way we've showed people that you can have one amazing page on your site, and then that page links to a whole bunch of different pages about the same thing, but more specific. So like the top tools for baking a good cake, the types of different baked cakes, and maybe we specialize in ingredients or, gluten-free. So it's funny because we just talked about food blogging going out of style. So this is probably not the pillar content you want to create. You probably want to, avoid that, just because if you weren't here to catch that beginning, food blogging might go out of style. It is so much easier to have this tool write a recipe, like so much easier. I won't go back. I'm going to use it every night, seriously, to create recipes. But point aside, if you're creating content and then developing visuals based on your research, it's really unique. And that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing a lot of content said the same way in different ways that just reads like fluff. And I would argue that this is not even fully accurate. So AI also really has no knowledge of what's important to you. Like for us, we're trying to get more traffic to the podcast. It had its most downloads it ever had last month. So we know that there's some success there. So we're pulling in that as a call out. And then we're sending people to it, as well as different types of CTAs. And those are things that I communicate to the writer. These are the important CTAs for the month. Like we actually have that. We have that as a thread in ClickUp. So these are the top CTAs for the month that we want to discuss, link to, and then she's linking to that in these pieces. So it's a really human process there. Your CTAs alone and the things that are important to you to generate sales and revenue. Like, what do you want people clicking on? What's the next step? Do you want them booking a call? Do you want them going through a webinar? Do you want them downloading an ebook and then being upsold in a sequence, or very straightforward email to a free call? So we have things like that set up, and that is such a human process because in the end, you're touching humans. You're not touching robots. So it has to be a human process there too. Another thing missing here is just screenshots, of course. It's not going to know how to mesh and add a perfect image. And some of these images, again, we develop. And it could be as simple as my writer's opening up Word, building a piece of content that she's then going to take a screenshot of, and then that screenshot goes into the article. So Good content's not easy, right? You probably know this already. It's really hard, I think, to even use this tool to develop long form. I would just not, because if you're a specialist with knowledge, it can get in the way. So Paul, you raised your hand. Did you have a question or a thought?
Yeah, Julia, but what if you, let's say, like, use it as a reference to get some kind of insights or ideas? Because I remember, like, when I was just starting as a content writer, like, what I would do is find all relevant blog posts and then kind of pick and choose. Is this a better workflow? Like, instead of trying to research your information from 10 different articles, having it all in one place, and kind of the focus is still the human kind of aspect, but then you can use it as reference. Look over, what else can I talk about? Or would it not really work like that, because you would technically like have your brief and structure laid out from the beginning? So would it even be useful in this sense if you're doing things properly?
Yeah, really good question. I've seen a lot of people, even people I respect, that are using this tool to get additional thought angles. And I'm still like, because this tool does not have a source of truth, right? If we go back to what OpenAI says about this tool and the new iteration, there is no source of truth. It just shares what it knows, which is currently still being taught to it. Like right now, it doesn't have knowledge after 2020 or 2021, the new model. So there's stuff missing from the current age. There's things missing from, most importantly, that place of experience. So if you're writing a piece of content, let's say you're even a new writer and content's not your strength yet, what I would do is pull the details for the piece that you need to write from the client, from the brand. And if that client and brand is really good, they're built on services or products that they've been offering, then they're going to have all the ideas you need for you to be able to write content that performs for them. So like going back to this piece of AI content, it's really difficult to say this would perform for anyone because it's so regurgitated. Even if you were to say, okay, this is an interesting angle that maybe I can write about, I haven't thought about this. But what if that thought it presented to you was wrong? Then you're writing on the wrong tangent. So that's why that would be the caution in using this. And I think that's actually a way to set yourself apart if you are a writer and a content creator, is by doing research that this tool may not necessarily know how to do, or even if it's pulling from different sources, the content ideas it's giving you are not accurate. And that to me is the biggest problem. I've seen that problem so glossed over, so ignored, because let's face it, a lot of us just want to get content done. But content that's just done isn't really going to perform. It's content that's done really well that's going to perform. We can't forget that. We can't create content just for the sake of content. Like, it's not going to work. And I tested this over and over. Even the short form tweets, had the lowest engagement out of my entire Twitter this week, out of just me posting nonsense. I think for using it to help you get past, okay, what do I actually write about, could lead you wrong. And that to me is like the danger of even opening it for long form content. I would rather go to the client and say, hey, I'm missing a section here. What should I write about? Because then you're getting details that come straight from that client who is going to use that content, right, to hopefully get them more clients, which brings them more business, which trickles down to you. That's what I would rather do instead of opening ChatGPT and using it for long form. I mean, I've seen marketers use it to write books, and I'm just like, please don't, because you really need expertise in a book of all things. And a book can take 9 months, right? And we're generating content with AI in seconds. Like I saw somebody say, I wrote a 5,000 word article with ChatGPT in 5 minutes, and it's going to go live on my blog right now. And I'm just like, no, please don't. There's likely so many inaccurate facts. So that's the danger. And I think it's not a popular opinion because we want to get content created. We want to get it done, off our plate, move on, next piece, right? Quantity, but really it's quantity and quality. You need both. You need a good quantity of content, but you also need quality. We have people that read these blogs that come out and they are such a hot lead. They're ready to go. And it's because the content qualified them. because it was really good. There's just so many things missing. There's so many things missing from this. That's why it's really hard to use it even as a replacement for the blank slate.